Most people see a duke and see power, unshakable authority, a man who kneels to no one, not to kings, and certainly not to fate. But right now, Duke Friedrich von Wolfstein is on his knees in the frozen mud. Snow falls around him like ash as he chases a carriage carrying the one woman he swore he would never love. Inside, Princess Caroline of Baden stares back at him. Her face is streaked with tears, her royal cloak torn at the hem. This is the man who called her useless. The man who watched her work until her hands blistered, then told her to take her royal fragile heart back to her silk pillows and leave his duchy forever. And now the northern wolf is begging. How does a man who built walls of ice around his heart end up breaking in the snow? How does a princess sent north as a commoner's punishment become the only person he cannot afford to lose? This isn't just a story about falling in love. This is a story about the fatal mistake of refusing it. It's about the moment pride shatters and the truth is finally revealed. That the person you push away hardest is the only one who can save you. And it all began in a golden throne room with a single defiant word. No. Before we continue, a quick reminder. This story is entirely fiction. Any resemblance to real persons or places is purely coincidental. Now tell us, where are you watching from tonight? Drop your country in the comments. If you believe in the power of a story that tests the soul, hit that subscribe button. We bring you tales of sacrifice and redemption every week, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Here is a question for you. Have you ever pushed someone away because you were too proud to admit you needed them? Think about that as we go back to the heat of the Baden throne room, where a princess looked at a king, refused a forced crown, and sealed her own fate. The throne room in the palace of Karlsruhe was silent. Not the silence of respect, but the suffocating hush of shock. Princess Caroline stood before King Heinrich of Baden, her chin raised. Every courtier held their breath. In the early 1800s, European nobility practiced conveniency, marriages of convenience. Royal daughters weren't women. They were chess pieces. Prince Leopold of Bavaria was the chosen match. He was wealthy, titled, and strategically perfect. He was also a man whose servants flinched when he entered a room. Caroline knew the cost of saying no. She said it anyway. Authority that punishes honesty does not seek loyalty. It seeks control. The king's voice was ice. If you wish to choose, then choose this. You will be stripped of your title and your gowns. You will go to the Duchy of Wolfstein in the frozen north. Duke Friedrich has agreed to take you as a ward. You will work. You will serve. And when you come crawling back, you will marry whomever I choose. Caroline's hands trembled, but her voice was steel. As you command, your majesty. The fortress of Wolfstein rose from the snow like a scar. No banners, no warmth, just gray stone and iron gates. When the carriage door opened, an elderly steward did not call her Highness. He called her Miss Caroline. She stepped into the slush, the cold biting through her thin wool cloak. She was led to the study of Duke Friedrich von Wolfstein. He sat behind a massive oak desk, eyes fixed on tax records. He didn't look up. "You are late," he said, his voice flat. "I did not ask for an excuse." "Close the door." He finally looked at her. His eyes were gray, sharp, and entirely unimpressed. "I have seen your kind before. Soft hands, softer hearts. You will last 3 days before you beg for your palace." Caroline didn't flinch. "Then I suppose we shall see, your grace." Refusing to acknowledge someone's presence is a power play. It says, "You do not matter enough for my attention." Caroline's new life began in the dark. By midday, her palms were red. By evening, they were blistered from scrubbing iron pots. She didn't say a word. But soon, the ornamental princess began to change the duchy. She spent her afternoons in the village square, teaching children to read on a wooden bench in the freezing wind. Friedrich watched from the shadows, unsettled. She wasn't performing. She wasn't seeking praise. She was simply good. When someone's kindness threatens your assumptions, Ask yourself why you needed those assumptions to begin with. The breaking point came late one night. Friedrich found his ledgers rearranged. He found Caroline in the hall, mending a curtain by candlelight. "You touched my accounts," he barked. "I corrected them," she replied. "There was a discrepancy in the grain taxes. Errors cost people their livelihoods, Your Grace." Friedrich stared at her. In the 19th century, estate management was life or death. Caroline had used the royal education her father dismissed to save his village from a winter of starvation. "We are taught to be useful," she said quietly, "even if the world prefers us ornamental." Friedrich turned and left without a word. But the walls of ice around his heart hadn't just cracked. They were beginning to melt. Winter in the north was no longer a season. It was a siege. But inside the fortress, something had changed. Caroline no longer looked like a princess in disguise. She moved with the efficiency of a woman who belonged to the stone and the snow. Friedrich noticed everything. He noticed her kindness to the servants and the way she spent her nights studying law by the fire. He had built his life on walls, but Caroline had slipped through every defense. And it terrified him. The breaking point arrived with the king's messenger. The decree was a death sentence, a triple tax on grain, due in 30 days. Authority that imposes impossible demands is not seeking compliance. It is seeking a reason to punish. "He is trying to break me," Friedrich snarled, pacing like a caged wolf. "If I don't pay, he seizes the duchy. If I do pay, my people starve." "Or," Caroline stepped forward, her voice a calm blade in the heated room, "you could use the law." Every eye turned to her. She didn't flinch. She cited the Reichsdeputationsschutz of 1803, the imperial recess. She explained that under Article 7, any tax imposed without consulting the territorial assembly could be challenged in the imperial court. Friedrich stared at her, stunned. "You know imperial law? I was taught by the same tutors who advised the king," she said. "My father is betting on your pride. He is betting you will fight with swords so he can call you a traitor. He isn't expecting you to fight with words. Those who provoke you into reckless action are usually the ones who have the most to gain from your anger." That night, the fortress hummed with a different kind of energy. Caroline worked side by side with Friedrich, her knowledge of legal Latin turning rough arguments into an airtight trap. When the document was sealed with the ducal crest, it wasn't just a letter. It was a declaration of independence. 3 weeks of agonizing silence followed. Then the messenger returned. His face was pale. "His Majesty withdraws the tax. Effective immediately." The servants cheered. The steward wept with relief. But Friedrich only had eyes for Caroline. She stood by the window, the pale winter light haloing her face. She had saved his people. She had saved him. In that moment, Friedrich realized a truth more frightening than any royal decree. She was no longer his ward. She was no longer his punishment. She was his equal. And he was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. That evening, Friedrich found Caroline in the library. She was reading by candlelight, her plain gown simple, but somehow more elegant than any royal silk. "You saved us," he said quietly. "I saved our people," she corrected. The word hung between them. "Our." Friedrich's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her that she was the first person who had ever looked at him and chosen to stay. But fear seized him. He assumed she only stayed because she had no choice, and that the moment the king called, she would vanish. To protect his heart, he struck first. "I am certain the king will recall you soon. You have learned your lesson. You may return to your proper life of silk and servants." Pushing someone away to avoid the pain of losing them guarantees the very pain you fear most. The royal summons arrived 2 days later. Caroline was to return to Baden to marry the cruel Prince Leopold. She told no one but Greta, the cook. She left a letter behind with one instruction: "Give it to him only after I am gone." As the carriage rolled away into the fog, Greta placed the letter on Friedrich's desk. In it, Caroline confessed the truth. "I would rather be a peasant in this frozen duchy than a queen in a palace where my mind is wasted. You gave me purpose by treating me as an equal. You were not a punishment, Friedrich. Wolfstein was the first place I ever truly lived. The letter slipped from Friedrich's hands. The walls he had built for protection didn't feel like a fortress anymore. They felt like a cage. Friedrich didn't just ride, he roared for his horse. He caught the carriage near the forest's edge, where the snow fell like ash. The man who knelt to no one, not to kings, not to fate, dropped to his knees in the frozen mud. I was wrong, he choked out as Caroline stepped from the carriage. I thought I could protect myself by pushing you away. I thought you were temporary, but you are the only person who saw something in me worth fighting for. In the mud and the cold, the princess knelt beside him. She didn't want a crown. She wanted the man who finally saw her. Control disguised as protection is just fear in a suit of armor. The greatest mistake is not refusing love. It is refusing it out of fear. Friedrich's error wasn't coldness. It was cowardice. He let the fear of loss stop him from embracing what was already his. Caroline's strength was her sacrifice. She gave up a crown for a life of meaning. She proved that the person who challenges you the most is often the one who sees you the clearest. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more powerful tales of sacrifice, courage, and the truth that sometimes the strongest walls are the ones you choose to tear down. Remember, the person you push away today might be the one you spend forever regretting. Choose wisely. In 1810, royal daughters across Europe were political currency. Princess Caroline of Brunswick, cousin to King George IV of England, was forced into a disastrous marriage in 1795 despite reports of the prince's cruelty. She was exiled, humiliated, and stripped of dignity. Our story echoes this reality. Women like Caroline had no voice, no choice. But unlike history, our Caroline chose differently. She said no, and that single word changed everything. Fiction gives us the endings history denied real women.